Hey, Tommy G.
Adrian Hanks.
On this glorious Monday afternoon.
Isn't it just the Blues are on fire at the moment? We're not talking about the Carlton football team, by the way.
We're back in the footy again.
Yeah, geez, after that win. So I think we're actually going live to LinkedIn for the first time, Adrian. It could be. Could be. Right? On straight into the group and live. Now, we're running StreamYard here, guys, so do bear with us. Here we are.
CAP TV.
CAP TV. Again. The CAP TV.
Tommy G and Adrian Hanks.
Yes. Adrian Hanks. That's who we are. Thanks for helping me. I feel like I've got a whole lot of things going on.
Mate, that's a bit of a frenetic day. It's like...
It's been crazy.
You know, so
so I've been getting a lot of stimulus coming in from them, and the coffee I just made didn't help, I got to tell you. I'm bouncing off the bloody walls.
So this could be a very lively show, mate.
It could be. I want to see if you can help me keep a lid on it and keep me at a nice homeostatic, peak sustainable flow state.
We'll do our best. So let's start with the topic for the week, shall we?
We shall.
So we're talking about intelligence, aren't we? You know, we started with the intellect, and then we went into the relationship, and then the emotional, and then today we're going to talk about the spiritual quantum, the spiritual intelligence, and throwing it over to you. How are we going to bring that into the physiological? How are we going to bring that into the sense of the body and bring in that idea of spiritual intelligence, that spiritual quantum in relation to the body, Tommy?
Right.
So big task for you today.
You just got that really teasy look on your face right now, just saying, if you read behind the lines and go, I'd like to see you sew this one together, champ.
And I have every bit of confidence in you.
No, thanks.
Yeah,
it's like, we've been stretching the hamstring over the last couple of weeks, getting further away from the physiological space to now, here we are.
Into that quantum space.
Into the quantum space and spirituality, right?
But of course, it has everything to do with the body because everything's connected.
Everything is connected.
I
love it. And in fact, I'm giving a talk this week. In 10 minutes. God.
Not like this.
You get past the intro.
You get open spacing, mate. You get an hour at least.
Right, I get an hour. Stretch it out, right? 10 minutes.
So you're going to stay on track for 10 minutes, mate. But lucky I'm coming to the talk.
Yeah, you can sort of be in the background.
Hey, Tommy, get back on track.
That's it. Get back on track. Tommy, what you're trying to say? That's it. Thanks, Adrian. The hook on the side. Look, it's...
so where are you giving the talk, firstly?
This is going to be at Varsity Lakes. So what's the name of the venue?
On the lakes, it's the Cafe...
what is the name?
Cafe Lakes or something?
Cafe Lakes.
Varsity Lakes Cafe.
Varsity Lakes Cafe, somewhere there in Varsity. But, I mean, the topic's going to be connected, as you said. And physiology and the spirit at the... I guess near highest level. I mean, there's like 12 dimensions. We're talking quantum, And so...
And 12 as if that's where you want to stop at 12.
Stop at 12? Yeah.
If you want to. There's
plenty more.
There's plenty more.
Is there?
There's plenty more.
Yeah, I'm sure, right?
Well, I'd say it's never ending.
Right.
You know, space, there isn't a lid on space. There's no lid on the cosmos.
Yeah, you'd think, right?
It's got to be more than we probably even can imagine. I imagine.
I think I have it hard enough imagining beyond the three-dimensional world structure that we have, let alone 12 of the damn things, right?
It's a bit like my favourite story, Can you please give me a synopsis of your fourth dimension before we start talking about the fifth?
Brain-bending stuff, right? But the quantum exists there, right? It's that layer where you've got all these little, let's call humans, antennae, right? And that's what they are. You've got this like meat suit wrapped around a soul, as Paul Check would describe it. I think it's a really apt description. And then you go into then you've sort of got these antennae, if you will, that connect you into everybody else through the quantum physics layer, right? And so if we're talking physiology, you've got to be thinking, okay, really we're talking about the spirit being connected into the meat suit, right? The wraparound or a kebab or whatever you want to call it, right?
So the question for me then, Tommy, is how is that connection made in terms of the physiological and the spiritual? What apparatus or what parts of the body are the receptors for that spirit?
Yeah.
And how does that play if we're going to get into spiritual intelligence? If we're downloading spiritual intelligence, let's say, from the Akashic record or from the cosmic intelligence or whatever one wants to call it, when that comes into the physiological, what are some of the things that happen in the body from that intelligence?
Yep. Okay. So there is an alignment that's going to happen, right? And your body is responding to signals that are, if we look at the physiological side here, the highest level of that, some would think is the brain, but actually it's the heart. And you want to get the heart and the mind aligned, and you get those aligned, and then we can start to connect in the spirit. Yeah. I'm going on the edges of my knowledge here because this is your area of specialty. Thanks for the. Geez, you've got an easy one this Friday, by the way. Too damn easy. It seems to be we stretch away from mine towards yours. It gets easier. Anyway, so when we're talking about getting those things aligned, it is actually quite measurable. Because we can talk about heart rate variability. Now, I don't know if people know about Heart Math Institute. Go and do a Google search. Heart Math Institute talk about the same concept of aligning, firstly, your mind and your heart and that then going out, connecting into spirit, because we're aligning to our truth, in effect, and who we are beyond the physiological being. Now, if you are not connected to your spirit, I think you run a high risk that there is going to be this disconnect between, therefore, heart and mind, chances are. And when that happens, you get this partly cognitive, partly non-cognitive dissonance, if you will, and the body starts to separate away from your spirit. That's not a healthy place to be. That's where chronic disease can really start to develop.
And addictions.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting.
When I do my addiction work through my psychotherapy, it's the thing that starts addictions or creates the addiction or keeps the addiction alive. It's that separation of spirit.
Right.
Yeah. Because when the soul's empty, it's like a hole in the ground after it's rained.
Yeah.
It has to fill up with something.
Right.
And if it's not water, it'll find something else, mud or something else to fill up with, because the hole has to be filled.
Right.
And when the soul has got a hole in it, it'll put any substance in there to fill that.
Right.
And usually we don't always put positive things in.
So physiologically, therefore, right, we're talking that could be eating disorders, and it could be eating a lot of crap that buzzes you out. The industry has done a great job with its chemical engineers and being able to work out how the receptors and what they call the bliss point in the brain works for money. Yeah. They want you to buy more, same as the, dare I say it, other industries.
Wouldn't be Big Pharma you're talking about.
Oh, there it is, right? Big Pharma. God, isn't the world an interesting place now with Big Pharma and Big C word, and all that to say it. Otherwise, we could be thrown off wherever, at the whim of some forces in the background that we can't see. But where do we get to? I was getting a little too creative there. So, getting back to physiology, right?
Yeah. Spoke about addictions.
So the other addiction can be alcohol. Right. And so we're saying, or we're getting into more neurological, mind-altering substances, right? That we can take. We're not talking about healthy dosing. I'm just wondering. I'm hoping I've got enough battery power there, and you can't see on StreamYard, right? Oh God, we are in a dangerous place right now.
Well, shall I keep the?
Shall
I keep the millions entertained?
We're going to take a quick commercial, not break, because you'll have my colleague right next to me. Well, I go and find the extension cord. I'll be right back.
Well, I might continue that little story on the addiction process, because I was working with a client this morning, and we were working exactly on that space in terms of breaking through some old habits and bringing in what I would call the life purpose or the life service. And that's a really important part, because what happens is if we don't follow that, if you like, that spiritual path, that spiritual understanding, that vocational pull, something happens in the physiological body where we start to get into bad habits, we get into addictions, we get illnesses, we get into dis-ease because we're not in our ease of the spiritual journey. So what Tommy was sharing before about that physiological dis-ease is that huge big disconnect with the lack of that spiritual quantum or that spiritual intelligence. Because when we tune in to that spiritual intelligence for ourselves to get a deeper understanding of what we're here to actually do on the planet from a spiritual perspective, if we don't follow that, then it will have an impact on the physical body. And then, of course, from the physical body, it'll have an impact on the emotional body. It'll have a relationship, a negative relationship on the intellect, on the mental health. So all aspects of our being stem in many ways from the connection we have or do not have with that spiritual quantum, with that spiritual intelligence. So this is if one could say, the height of intelligence. The height of intelligence is from that spiritual place. But how do we learn to tap into that is a question, so it doesn't have the impact on the physiological or the psychological or the emotional. How do we tap into that? And for me, it's about getting into meditation. That's always the first call, because when we get into the meditative state, it's the first way we can start to learn to tap into the spiritual realm. Because at some point we have to make a connection. At some point we have to make a connection. If we jump onto a phone, to make a connection, like Tommy has, we have to plug something in. We're getting recharged here because we're running a bit low.
Yep.
And how do we do that? Well, we plug it into electricity. We get an energy flow of electricity into the phone. It boosts the capacity of the phone to full charge. And we can do that by plugging into the spiritual realm.
Right.
But we have to find the socket to plug into. We have to find the cable. I call it the golden thread. And in many traditions, they talk about the golden thread. In fact, there's a lady called Hollywood in America.
Hollywood,
who's just written a book called The Golden Thread. It just got published. And the golden thread is an old language that many traditions have used for millennium, of using that golden thread that one energetically ties around your body, your ankle or your waist or your wrist. And it's like a kite string, and you slowly let that golden thread out and go through the different portals of the spiritual world. You spoke before about all those different levels, 12 levels or 14 or 33 levels, whatever your belief system is around that. But if you're connected to this golden thread, it's a safety thread.
Right. And
the person holding it at the other end is the teacher, or the spiritual, in old terms, the spiritual hierophant. That would know how far to let the initiate or the student go to connect.
Right.
Because if you're not connected, it's easy to get lost up there.
Right.
There's a big space up there.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got the map, if you haven't got the guide map, and a lot of people do, they
you don't want to go free diving into that stuff.
Yeah, we spoke about before. If you take some drug to go and get into that place fast, and you bypass the markers, the safety zones, and if you gate crash, you're in trouble.
Right.
So for me, it's finding the right teacher, the right pathway to navigate safely into the spiritual realm.
So you could really overheat that kind of like transition where it actually can come back negatively and from a physiological point actually affect you, right?
Totally blow the circuits.
Right, blow the circuits in the brain. So where it comes back into connecting in to because we go beyond our bodies to connect to something. How's it going to happen? It's going to be an electromagnetic type of connection. And it's the way that waves travel. We know this. Radio, 5G, right? Whoops, almost. Right? Those things exist, and we are the same. So if you're overheating it, right, and connecting with too many frequencies, I mean, you can blow, as you said, the circuits.
Well, look how many people did in the 60s with acid, with LSD.
Right.
Blew the circuits because they had experiences that the mind couldn't handle. Right. And bang, fries the brain because it's too much overload.
Right.
And a spiritual experience is similar to that experience of a drug because it's mind altering.
Fused.
Yeah, if you go into the spiritual space and you suddenly, go and meet Archangel Michael.
Right.
I mean, the mightiest being on the planet. I mean, it's going to fry a few planes up. It's like, whoa,
holy crap, the amygdala's going to get fried on that one.
Exactly,
right?
which is the physiological.
Right.
You know, so that spiritual intelligence, for me, back to the physiological, is something we have to learn to navigate.
It's interesting. I mean, you can use the metaphor, right? I mean, it's not just maybe a metaphor. This is kind of like real.
Yeah, it's real.
Right? You're going to blow an organic circuit in your head, and then you come back from that experience, and what's sitting in the database is that experience of, oh my God, that it's changed you for life.
Yeah, totally,
So you've got to be really careful and navigate.
And where'd you go with that information? Because if you go to that information, you know, not to give a negative the medical fraternity,
right.
But if I have an experience like that I've seen God, or I've seen an experience over the other side, and I go and see a doctor, then I go and see a psychologist generally, or and somebody in that space. Oftentimes what happens is you end up in a psych unit.
Right.
Because it's not seen as real.
Wow.
Because our 3D world, in terms of the medical fraternity, doesn't really accept that.
Right.
Even though, you know, people go to church every day and believe in God and talk to angels, but when it becomes a reality for people, it crosses some boundary. Particularly in the Western culture. Eastern culture is a bit different because it's a bit more accepted. But in our 3D Western culture, if one has an experience that's outside the norm, you know, it's not really
spiritual hamstring.
And it'll have an effect on the physical body.
Need rehab.
You know, which, you know, from your part, Tommy, it'll affect the sleep, the mental capacity, the physiological capacity. You know, so what can we do from your expertise to prepare the body for such experiences?
No, great sort of connect back in there. You know, this is it. I mean, you don't want to pull a hamstring metaphor for the body, even in the physiological realm within itself. But then if you do something in the spiritual world that is connected in, right, then you're going to break something as well. So to come back from the other way, and how do you work up towards this? I mean, getting fit, doing exercise properly, eating properly, sleeping properly is somewhat of a spiritual exercise in itself.
Totally is.
Right?
Totally.
Because you've got to becoming connected to you and your truth on what is right for you in each of those areas. And to do that, you've got to have a certain level of awareness to start to detach. I'm not saying disconnect, but detach from an emotional point, those things that were holding you in those habits that weren't serving you in eating, moving, and sleeping. And that kind of starts with the thinking piece, right? Which is where you and I connect now.
Back to the IQ.
Worlds, right? Back to the IQ, right? And getting into that intelligence piece, and the EQ as well. Because there's emotions that are going to hold you back from taking that step. So it's like when you take the first steps to go to the gym, everybody knows, and it's tough in the beginning, and you're waking up certain muscles that, even myself this week, I mean, my lower back's been playing up, typical for my health type. And it's been, my hips have been tightening up, and I thought, you know what, it's time to get this sorted once and for all. And it tends to be typical of my health type, and if you've been doing triathlete, you know, in the past, at triathlon, and I went to, interestingly, my physiotherapist. He's actually online, and I'm going to be interviewing him in the next week, right? Darcy Stubbings, his name is. He's gone from being a physiotherapist, as we talk about spirituality, right? And at a pretty young age, right? I think he's 30, 31, this guy. Amazing guy. From being a physiotherapist, fully trained, qualified, to now yoga instructor. I think, why would you do that? Isn't there more money in physio? Right?
Not about the money, Tommy.
It's not about the money, right? Obviously. So he's gone to the more spiritual side of what is physiological movement, but to connect in to oneself. And so I got a bunch of exercises from him to do.
Spiritual practice, yoga.
Right. Okay. So it was a combination of some yogic to the Western world stuff, integrated, connected, right? As we go physiology to more spiritual. And I'm feeling the best in that space that I have for a long time. And so release was happening in certain muscles, and that can be connected to emotions.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right? And I got to tell you,
The issue's in the tissue.
the issue's in the tissue, right?
Yeah.
If not, the issue will end up in the tissue.
Yeah.
Right?
Always.
Right?
Yeah.
And we can go to a more scarier place here. We know what we're talking about here, right? But my both in my glutes to lower back tight, because my glutes were not triggering; they weren't activated.
Yep.
And I had to get them. He's got this fantastic methodology of RAM: remove, activate, move.
Yep.
Right. And so I had to release. So we did the release. I got to tell you, that was painful.
Rubber mallet.
Almost felt worse than that. I would prefer the rubber mallet, I think. I had a ball under my glutes, and I had to, like, when I find where it hurts the most, sit there for a while with it.
Yeah.
It was effing painful, Adrian. Now, that stuff's connected to emotion, and then there's going to be a connection there.
The psychotherapy, mate. We'll get you there.
Right? Yeah.
I'll get you on my couch. Yeah.
Yeah, with the rubber mallet.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, this might be a bit.
Tell me about your emotions.
Yeah, there we go. Right, with the pendulum.
Yeah.
Interestingly, to that, the other day, when it was about 2 weeks ago, you had your pendulum, and you're checking my electromagnetic field, and what you're doing is you're checking my biofield for where there could be issues. Issues that my biofield already knows, right?
Yeah, of course.
And you went around my body, and you went down here into the right hip, and it went the other way. And you go, oh, you've got an issue there. I'm thinking, hang on, if I told Adrian that I had an issue that was super tight in my right hip, I think, I don't think so.
No.
But it was totally on my mind, though. And what you picked out was the fact that it was totally, like, on my mind, the body was talking to the pendulum.
And electromagnetically,
right,
there's a hole in your etheric body.
Right.
Because the etheric body is a copy of the physical body.
Right.
So if there's something wrong in the physical body,
the
aura will show a hole or a fading.
Like a lack of energy or something in that
around
area.
that area.
Right.
Because it's just a mirror. The etheric body is a mirror.
Right.
So, from people who can see energy, they'll go, oh, you've got a hole or a tear in your aura.
Right.
Because the physical aspect, or the emotional aspect,
or
the mental aspect, is out of balance.
Right.
So it'll get picked up in the energy body or the etheric energy field or the life field.
Yeah. Well, it freaked me out when you found out. I thought, how do you do that? Because, like, it's super tight. It's been on my mind, and now that was about 2 weeks ago, and it's been releasing. My leg is feeling better, a lot from the help of Darcy, giving me certain exercise. I got to tell you, damn, it was painful. Agony to one day, I just wanted to cry. I had tears, and I'm thinking there's got to be an emotional aspect to this as well.
Not got to. There is.
There is. There we go.
The expert live on TV. We're going to go there.
Yeah, we're live on TV. Yeah. Right.
Dr. Adrian.
Dr. Adrian. Yeah. Right. And this morning, I left it for 48 hours after doing it for 12 days almost straight. And today it was like a lot better. The release is happening, and I can feel when I bend over, my lower back isn't as tight. So I'm thinking, okay, this thing's going on now to make it better. So, if we want to talk about connecting the spiritual, physiological, there was one prime example. And then using spiritually combined approaches, like with Darcy on yoga to some physiotherapy to get this thing fixed. So if that isn't an example of what we're talking about in this.
Totally. So you go from the physiological, and then, as you mentioned, there's an emotional component that we'll talk about. We'll go there. And then there's obviously mental capacity around that. But then the bigger question around that then, isn't it, is what's out of alignment spiritually?
Right.
Where you're not doing your spiritual practice. That would then feed into the mental, and then the emotional, then into the spiritual. So you can sort of bypass, if you like, on some level, the emotional and the mental, and one could say where you're not following your spiritual practice, because that's going to have an impact on the physical body as well.
Right. We're going to get some.
Here we go.
We've got some visitors coming. Someone's dropping in.
Straight down my stairs, from the spiritual. Oh, look, it's Archangel Mikey dropping in.
Let's ask them some spiritual questions right now. And spiritually painting the building. How you doing, mate?
Give us a wave, mate. Give us a wave.
You're on FB Live. Here we go.
Yeah, right.
You're on live TV. This
What's
is
actually hilarious?
this is the Archangel Michael just dropped in with his fluoro.
Somebody said they needed some spiritual help. Someone called.
And here we are.
Here we are.
He's going to put the chain around my neck and up I go.
Asking the insurers. Yeah, he's just getting the trainer ready for Adrian right now.
Oh, this is perfect. Don't you love synchronicity?
See you later, guys.
See ya. Thanks for the help. So, you know what's hilarious? Is that today I'm in the kitchen window, and that looks out. Obviously, it's a window. And all of a sudden, I've got two bodies that drop in front of me and half freak me out.
You don't get the Archangel Michael dropping in every
Yeah,
five
that
minutes.
was good. That was good. We couldn't
That
have
was
timed
good
that any better. My God, people out there took photos of that one. I'm going to put it on a poster. It's hilarious.
That was classic.
God, just dropping in for a bit of spiritual remediation.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So it's always back to that question, is it aligning the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual in terms of that intelligence?
Yeah.
So when something is out of place in the physical, we can go to the emotional, then we go to the mental, and then eventually, if we follow the logic of the layers, we're going to hit the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
Just by logically following.
Right.
You know, like the building blocks, the physical, the emotional, the mental, bang, spiritual.
It's the next
And
level.
yet, that, Tommy, is so often cut off in our society.
Oh, God.
Spiritual.
It's just this
Yeah.
Newtonian
off.
physics,
Yeah.
right? And it got locked there because apparently the religious world
Yeah.
said, oh, this is our space, demarcation dispute,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Industrial relations of religion are coming.
You can go gravity,
Right.
but please don't go levity.
Right. Not allowed.
Not allowed.
Right now the world has changed. Right now where we are pushing up through the glass ceiling right now.
Into levity.
Right, into levity,
Yeah.
right? And with spiritualism becoming a thing, we have wonderful people like, Joe Dispenza and others that are saying, it's fine, like science is actually catching up. For those of us that don't want to take the risk of, believe it, see it when you believe it when you see it,
Yeah.
right? Science is now going to show. So is it still refutable?
Yeah.
For those that only believe in science, well, it's now deliverable via science as well.
Yeah.
This is real.
Yeah.
Just because you can't touch it, you can't see it, you can't taste it.
But can you
can't
feel
hear
it? Can you feel it?
Feel it.
That's the
Can you
question.
feel it?
And this is
Can
for
you
me,
feel
Tommy.
it?
This is for me the next level of the bringing science and spirit together.
Yep.
Is how do we get feelings into science? How do we measure feelings scientifically? That's the
Right.
question for me.
Ah.
Because when people measure it scientifically, we go left brain, people go, it must be true because my left brain believes it logically. And the spiritual say, well, it must be true because I feel it.
So we need a
Or I
feelometer.
experience it.
We need a feelometer.
Because experience is a feeling. I mean,
Right.
it's, really. So where can we find the
Okay.
magic in science and
I
spirituality?
would. I'm going to go a little bit out there and say that, if we look at like Heart Math Institute, they're measuring via heart rate variability,
There you
right?
go, yeah.
And I would say heart rate variability would have a strong correlation with this.
Yeah. Totally.
Right?
Yeah. Because when one feels expanded,
Yep.
spiritually,
Yep.
it's going to have an impact on the heart.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I know, it's measurable in terms of energy flow from the heart, the more
Yes.
we're connected to spirit.
Which we can measure,
But yeah, scientifically.
right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's,
scientific methods.
Joe Dispenza is doing it in his rooms where he has what he calls his, he's got like a few hundred people in a room and it's his week-long sessions. And
Yeah.
they have this thing they call Sputnik because it's a Russian, a lot of great stuff's come out of Russia around this sort of stuff. And it's a ball with spikes on it. It's measuring the electromagnetic force of the room.
Like a Van de Graaff.
Right.
You remember that in science? You
Yeah.
put your hand on the Van de Graaff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's all somebody
Right.
there, let's go
Similar.
get the whack.
Right. Yeah.
Who's going to go on the end?
Yeah, poof. Oh, had it cranked up a little too high. But similar concept. I mean, that's electrical, right?
Measurable.
Measurable, but it's electromagnetic waves, and they are measurable. And if we go back to HRV, what we're measuring is
Heart rate
the heart rate variability. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Between the it's not perfectly, your heartbeat is not perfect metronome. It varies slightly, and that slight variation is correlated to 9 out of 10 of the things that we are dying from today, which tend to be chronic disease, not a CV-19. Let's not go there right now. But what we're doing is saying, okay, is this person feeling connected? Are they relaxed? Are they balanced between their what they call sympathetic fight and flight and their parasympathetic rest and digest mode. Because if they are centered, right, and they're balanced and they're in a homeostatic state, and they can experience homeostatic flow.
Yeah, and it's a bit like, so what I'm hearing you say to me, to clarity, is it's a bit like music. You have the beats.
Yep.
Yeah, and the heartbeats.
Yep.
But what's happening between the beats?
Exactly.
That's
right.
what's being measured.
Exactly right.
They're not measuring just the beat anymore.
No.
What's measuring is the frequency
Space between.
We've spoken before, 99.9999999999999 recurring percent of the cosmos is space.
It's space.
The matter is like,
Right.
0.0000001% of matter.
Yeah.
Everything else is space.
And it's showing the adaptability zone, as far as if that variability is high, that's good, right? Because during that time, then you're probably rebuilding, right? Because when the blood goes, when you're in sympathetic fight and flight mode, your blood's gone to the extremities.
Yeah.
It's pulling away from all of your organs.
Is everything warm?
So so blood flow, energy, everything else, all the good stuff that is in blood, usually the good stuff. Not too much sugar, I hope, another thing. But it's giving nutrients to your organs. You can only do that in a balanced parasympathetic, not too parasympathetic, right, state. Now, the other thing that's happening is that your immune system, when you're in that sympathetic state, gets shut down by your body. The reason it does that is that it's rediverting energy to where it's thinking there's an emergency. If you're in that emergency state all the time, you're not tending to, the longer term rest and digest and the organs and so on. Energy is not going there.
And leaving oneself open to disease.
Yeah, absolutely right.
So back to self-responsibility again, about keeping the garden tidy.
Yep.
Keeping the weeds out and the flowers growing, keeping the soil, as an analogy, keeping the soil fresh.
Turned and fresh.
Yep.
Right, feeding in new compost in effect.
Yeah.
I mean, we can start talking about biome and gut biome,
Yeah.
the microbes of
And
which
we're keeping the viruses and the pathogens out by staying healthy.
Well, we're keeping them balanced, keeping the good guys in, keeping the bad guys under control. But see, some of the bad guys we kind of need to a degree because of what they excrete and do. But we've just got to keep that whole ecosystem in balance. And for that to happen, it needs to be all connected.
Yeah, and of course, if you don't have something attacking, then the defenses never get built up and they die. And then there's no defense. And if something comes along, hence, we won't even get into vaccines today.
Right, no.
Because if we get false vaccines in the body,
Yep.
the body isn't in its trueness of its natural ability to stop a dis-ease.
If we're in a perfect homeostatic state, like homeostasis and everything is exactly where it should be and it doesn't move, we're actually dead. Then we're actually dead. It needs to be in a range and it needs to move and oscillate. And like you said, there needs to be a certain amount of tension in the system, right, to keep us alive. And that's what we call a state of hormesis. That's actually healthy tension within the body, right? So all these things are somewhat esoteric, like out there type concepts.
The body's about the most
real.
esoteric thing.
Try
and design it. Go and design it.
It doesn't.
Go and design a human being. It's pretty
Jeez, could you imagine?
That's pretty esoteric.
And
Every
this is the thing.
cell, every
atom,
atom,
and then you go beyond the cell. Like you said, a lot of it's space, a lot of it's actually energy, a lot of it's light.
Who
Energy.
created, how did that even get created?
Who made that thing? And then we can arrogantly come along as an industry and go, let's go down to reductionism, right? Down to, it's a symptom, this is what you need for that particular thing. What caused that symptom in the first place? And there are so many things that could have caused that symptom, right? And so they've got to correlate and triangulate a bunch of symptoms. It's still so inaccurate that then the way we go to treat it is in isolation of the rest of the body, rather than looking at the individual holistically, including spiritually, where are they? And this is where functional medicine starts to press into this area of going beyond just the human they're looking at. They're looking at mental, emotional stuff. Spiritually, they're trying to feel if this person is centered or is there something going on with them, right? So this is where everything is connected, and we're at the top end of it with the spiritualogical piece, right? And how the spirit connects with the physiology. This isn't so hard.
No, it's not. I knew you'd get
It's
that.
okay.
I knew it would be. It's just your mindset.
That's what I was at the beginning. Going, holy
It's
crap!
about, if we go back to the physiology, and I know about you, back to science, back to biology.
Right.
11, 12 years old, walk into the science lab, we're doing biology and sex ed.
Right.
And the teacher walks in with a skeleton on
Yeah.
a bit of string. And the old paradigm is this skeleton is what keeps you upright.
Right.
Yeah. But get a pair of scissors and cut the string that the teacher's holding, and it collapses.
Right.
So then, excuse me,
Yeah.
if it's not the skeleton, what is it that keeps us upright?
There's got to be some energy.
Levity.
Levity. Right.
Levity.
Right.
You know, and that's not taught.
Right.
Levity's been taken out of the equation because of religion.
Right.
Because if we start to levitate, if we start to get into levity,
Right.
and we lose the 3D,
Right.
we become free.
Oh, that means we're not in
Freedom.
control.
Spiritual
We
freedom.
haven't been controlled.
Spiritual freedom.
Right. And there's a lot of stuff going on about that around the world right now.
Spiritual freedom.
Right.
It's the ultimate freedom, isn't it?
Right. Spiritual freedom.
Yeah. Spiritual freedom.
Well, I mean, Viktor Frankl, you
Yep.
know, he got to that state of spiritual freedom.
Yeah.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People, for those that are more of the business world, therefore. Stephen Covey. I mean, he quotes Viktor Frankl
Yeah.
and how he was in the concentration camps,
Yeah.
and they were doing experiments on his body,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And cutting him up and testing stuff, and he had to find freedom
Yeah.
in his spirit, and thinking that, well, they can take my body from me and everything else,
And I'm
but
free.
they can't take my spirit.
Nelson Mandela said the same thing.
Right? Same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the humbleness of Adrian
Right.
is aiming for that. You
Right.
know, that I need my freedom.
Right.
Freedom is essential for my being.
Me as the knuckle dragger as
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
between the two of us.
I don't know. When I've got my St Kilda shirt on, I'm not going to be
Yeah, yeah, it switches. Right? Talking about knuckle draggers, holy crap. So, yeah.
The voice is back. Did you know?
Oh, yeah.
It didn't take long.
Damn.
It recovers very quickly. The footy voice. But when we get into that spiritual knowing, or if you like, spiritual freedom, and we can find that place and be totally free spiritually, then of course it'll come down freedom mentally,
Yep.
freedom emotionally, and freedom physically.
Right.
And when one's in
Yes,
that peak
yes.
state,
Yep.
physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, as a human,
Yep.
and we aim to reach those peak states,
Yep.
and we all start to do that on the planet,
Yep.
collectively,
Yep.
what a different planet will be.
Oh, God. Well, you know, this is where we can use the situation, you know, if we're going to sit here in the spiritual realm for a moment, of CV19. And now that is either going to create, and I think in the beginning, the Tommy G opinion is that it's going to polarize to begin. But we have, at the same time, such a huge opportunity. The only way I think we will get through this thing is to actually unify. Go the other way.
Embrace the change.
Embrace the change. Not be scared. And that means not being scared means going into the blackness of where you haven't been before. And not, you know, because the ego loves to predict. And this is beyond ego prediction.
Yeah.
This is to go to somewhere you haven't been before and trust that all is going to be cool. Now, you could also say and argue there's certain forces that are controlling certain things and have for a long time. And this is all starting to serve us.
You sound like a conspiracy theorist.
Oh my God. Yeah. Anything. Well,
Coming from me, that's pretty good.
you want conspiracy theory? What about what's on the TV right now?
Oh, yeah.
Why is that not conspiration theory?
Yeah.
Because and it's coming from mainstream media. So if it comes from mainstream media, it's not conspiracy theory.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's got to be
Yeah.
true. Yeah. It's got to be true. Yeah.
If you're not part of the mainstream narrative, it's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Come over to CAP TV.
Right?
It's more captivating.
Oh, we're getting right at that. Well, we have got a spiritual theme this week, right?
Yeah,
Big time.
and check facker. If there's any check
Check-facker?
a fact.
You're a check-facker.
A fact checker. If there's anything we say on here
Right.
that you find that you want to check that's not factual, well, tough. It's my opinion. It's Tommy's opinion.
Right. There you go. Right. Just come here at least for entertainment, perhaps.
That's right. That's
So
right.
those guys don't know
That
what
was
they're
my
talking
point.
about.
Yeah.
They are talking total
Yeah.
BS.
But do challenge.
Right.
Do ask questions.
We are.
Because for me, it's about asking the question.
It is asking the question.
Yeah.
Post I sent on FB today saying that I got to say it was one of my more controversial Facebook posts today. You know, I respect the theme within LinkedIn. I don't do those sorts of things there, but on FB, it's, you know, that's my place and space, and like it is for everybody. And freedom of speech, I think, is something that's been kind of somewhat tilted by the platforms. We're seeing it. This isn't a conspiracy. Just go and see what's happening.
Yeah. Just open your eyes.
Right? If you don't say anything that's part of the
Eyes wide
narrative,
open,
it gets. You know, I don't know who decides whether it should or not, mind you. You know, I didn't know when these platforms are running the government
The
or
thought police.
deciding that. I don't know. That's bullshit. Well, prove to me. It's you know. So we've got some really interesting stuff. I didn't mean to get controversial on this particular FB, but I'm sorry, this StreamYard live, not FB live. We are cross-platform.
You've just got banned from Facebook.
Yeah, want to get banned from StreamYard? You're going to
You're going to get your 6 week.
Right, we're connected. Yeah, sideline.
Yeah.
So how did we get here? How did I get here? So
Talking heads
close
in
this
that
back.
song, did they?
What's that?
Well, how did we get here? How did I get this beautiful house? How did I get this
My
beautiful
God, people are
house?
going to think we're macro dosing, not micro dosing right now. So, where was he? Where was he? Where was me?
Yeah, where was he?
Right, it was
Where
really
does Tommy G go
spinning out.
in his CAP TV moments?
Right, so we're talking about physiological and spiritualogical here.
So bringing back to
Lost
that,
the lip, please.
So
Land me, Adrian.
So bringing back to that question of the link between the spiritual, physiological and the spiritual, and the adverse and positive effects of the body when we connect or we don't connect to the spiritual.
Yep.
Because if we don't connect, adverse. If we do connect, positive.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the things to do, and you mentioned, getting fit, watching the sleep, watching the food, doing the exercise.
Yep.
Because in some way, that's the preparation for spirituality. Because for me, in the spiritual realm, it's 80% preparation. So if we don't prepare to go through the doorway,
well, you got to layer up.
Yeah, if we don't prepare, it's like running. If you don't prepare to run, you're going to pull a hammer.
Well, if it's a triathlon, you think you're just going to go and do a triathlon? Oh, there's a triathlon tomorrow, I'm going to go and do it.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, for those of us that have done it for a while, I could probably do one, but you can bet it's going to be pretty slow.
You could pull up sore.
I never really pull up sore. It's really weird.
That's because you've got that feeling.
There we go. I can't feel anything. Yeah, I'll break something instead. Right? I've disconnected myself from pain.
Feelings.
Nothing more than. You take me on this tirade direction, throwing me, right? It's playing with me. Right? But you can't go and do a triathlon straight away, or at least not to perform well on doing one. If your body's been conditioned to do it over years, you probably could because you know your body. But if you're coming out on day one and you're all of a sudden going to go, you know what, I'm going to go from physiological, I'm going to jump right over to the spiritual side, you are going to pull a hammy. You know, the first thing is, what's going to protect you from pulling your hammy? Your belief system to begin with. Probably right. It's BS. It's bullshit.
And what a great thing to have in place,
right? To protect.
Because if seriously, if you go to that spiritual realm too quick, too fast, you end up in psych unit.
Right. There we go. Right.
Psych unit's full of people who've had spiritual experiences.
Right.
And it's been put down to some medical condition.
Right. Oh yeah. CB19.
Yeah. Is that a medical condition?
Yeah, it is. Apparently, everybody dies these days. Dies from CB19. Yeah. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
There's some stuff. In fact, the post that I did reshare today, getting back to that, was around that very thing. There was a gentleman, Jamie. I've forgotten his surname right now, but he's an author of many books, and he fired up. The thing is, he fired up with a lot of factual data.
Yeah.
Unlike what's happening in mainstream right now, right? And he put his money where his mouth is, and he said, "I'm putting up $1 million in assets to you, mainstream media, to dispute what I'm saying."
Ooh, good on him,
right? $1 million. And I thought that guy deserves a medal for courage and following his truth and his spirit. So bringing it back around, if you're not following your spirit, right? Physiologically, you're actually there's a decent chance you could end up getting spanked. The fact that you're not following your truth, it's just connected to your spirit. Getting back, you said before, thank God it's there to protect, right? As far as the amygdala and belief system, because that's what it's trying to do at a basic level. It's protect,
totally.
But it's a little outdated to where we should be today. So I'm going to put that back around the other one. I think there's a healthy balance, Adrian, right? To where we are to oscillate and to expand like a triathlete doing their training. You've got to load up and then you've got to taper off, load up.
Exactly. Yep.
Don't snap the hamstring,
Yeah,
right? And so that takes momentum. The thing is, the world has been stuck, and you called it, what was it, from levity, right? Not being able to go. And there's been some forces, some things that have programmed us over the years, some systems and whatever else, to not go beyond. Now, let's get
stay
to
in gravity, stay in gravity,
right,
stay in gravity, stay in 3D, stay 3D.
Stay in Newtonian physics,
Yeah.
right? It's already been proven. Tesla did. Look what happened with his stuff. Now,
look what happened to him.
Look what happened to him, right? Yeah. Now they're starting to unlock this stuff. There was pressure put on for all the stuff in Area 51. In CIA papers, there was pressure been put on for a lot of disruptive technologies that are there. Right,
mate, you're being very controversial today.
I'm fire.
Very on fire.
I'm on fire. No, it's got me. That post I saw got me fired up. It was sent to me by a good friend.
It's usually April.
Right? I'm on fire today. Woo! Where they've been concealing stuff, and it's been released now. You can go and look. Where there's technologies and so on that could help solve a lot of the problems on the planet. They're not doing it. Why? Because once again, and I'm going to say this, and LinkedIn, whichever platform. It's like, for fuck's sake, it's like we're talking about people's lives versus dollars. Now, I get it as a healthy balance, and that our leaders have a challenge right now, having to manage economics but the tension that is created, apart from being palpable, right? It is real, and this is where that polarization, until we have it, I think potentially unification, bring it right around. Is really starting to stretch. Where does our values lie as a race right now? Decisions that we are making. We're going to have to make some big new ones to get to the new world, right?
Because we have to get that health right first, don't we?
Right.
You know, I watched a movie a couple of weeks ago on Teflon.
Right.
Have you ever seen it?
Oh yeah.
Whoa.
That movie, Black Water, Black something.
Yeah, Dark Water.
Dark Water or
Dark
something.
Waters, yeah.
With Ruffalo, whatever his name is.
Yeah. So
the actor.
80% of the people on the planet.
DuPont.
Yeah. 80% of people on the planet, if you're going to have a blood test now, and test for the particles of Teflon in your body,
right?
80% of people on the planet have it in their system.
Right.
80% of the planet.
Yeah.
And some pretty high.
And that's just Teflon.
And one wonders, when there's a disease or an illness in somebody, that's never tested.
Right. Yeah.
That's never
Those
tested.
things never get tested.
So I'm just wondering how many people are dealing with an issue.
What they'll do is they'll go, oh, it's a kidney issue, take these. Or we need to take your kidney out. They once again don't look at the cause.
But if we go back to, that Teflon, and you go to the doctor and say, I want you to test my blood for Teflon at the levels.
Right.
Oh, how many people even think of that?
Yeah, they don't.
Well, I didn't.
Or how much metals and mercury.
Yeah.
Right? It could be even mold in the home and stuff, right?
It's the amount of toxins in the body.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah, I use the Chinese.
Tests for this.
I use the
Dutch
Chinese
test.
foot absorbers to take the toxins out of my body.
Right.
And you stick them on at night, peel them off in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And they're black.
Serious?
The toxins that come out of my body, and I'm pretty clean.
I want to check that out.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's basically like charcoal.
Right.
And they're dry. You put them on the bottom of the feet.
Extracting all the crap out of your system.
And pull them off in the morning, and yuck.
Wow.
And it just pulls out, like it
all
pulls
the
toxins.
all the gum.
Yeah, so you buy them, just go on eBay and buy them and just test for yourself.
Doing sauna is another great one for getting rid of metals. Right.
Saunas, yeah.
Right. The Dutch test, you can do the Dutch test, which is a urine test. Is one of them for the first preliminary type testing on this stuff, for if you've got a bunch of metals sitting in your body, right? So getting back,
muscle test as well.
And you can muscle test, right? I used to think that stuff was a bit of wank, a bit of woo-woo, but it's not.
He's coming around. He's coming around.
Oh my God, it's more like woohoo.
He's coming around. This guy,
right?
Muscle testing him next week. On that hip.
Well, look, and then getting back to the stuff in Area 51 that's been locked away. Some of it the same from extraterrestrial beings, but what's been released, and there was a massive WikiLeaks thing that happened
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, right?
Another WikiLeaks, big one. Yeah, lots of information coming through. But finding the time, Tommy,
to consume all that stuff,
not just to consume it, but to filter through those big releases,
right? Which
to pick the bones, because
right.
there's so much there.
Yeah, well, this is it.
And if too much, it's going to fry the brains.
You're going to be overwhelmed. Right? It's like, too much. Yeah. And the thing is, industry loves that, because what it does is it brings in, it throws in a little hand grenade for everybody to get polarized again and go yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Oh, no decision.
Yeah.
Right? But the thing is, we are at that point right now I really believe it, that there's just all these things are being strained.
Yeah.
Something's gonna give.
Yeah, but we need, for me, I receive emails all the time with, conspiracy this, and I received one yesterday with a topic of something happening in Melbourne, and I wrote back to the person that sent it to me that was secondhand from somebody that sent it to them, and probably, 10th hand probably by the time it gets through the chain, and I said, I hear it, I want some evidence. Is there any video footage of that occurrence? Because for me, if I see it, I know it can still be doctored video, but it's the best we have right now.
Yeah.
Video evidence is the best we have in the 3D world
It's
right
scalable,
now. It's scalable,
Yeah.
left brain understandable, logic. So for me, if I hear a conspiracy of something is happening or somebody's arriving on the planet or we're saving bodies or children or whatever it is, I want to see the evidence now.
Yep.
Because there's so much misinformation out there as well.
There's
I want
misinformation,
that.
the
I want
fake
that
news thing.
Yeah, so I can go as spiritual, I can go
Yeah.
into that realm as deep as anybody, but I also want the 3D evidence on the 3D level.
Yep.
I have my evidence upstairs when I go there because I feel it and I trust that feeling.
Yep.
But when I'm in this world,
Yep.
in the physiology, I want the evidence.
Did we just do an avatar sort of like swap just
Yeah,
then?
we do. Like,
I'm going on the spiritual angle now, and you're doing the physiological piece.
I wanted to make you feel comfortable.
We're becoming multilingual.
Yeah, bit of psychology coming in to make you feel really good.
Oh my God, oh, terrific.
Yeah.
But this is it, Adrian. We get to, once again, the corporate world's getting ripped off.
Yeah.
Right?
Every
It's been
day.
spinning on a different angle when
It's been spinning out of control.
out of control. When there is that we're leaving better performance of individuals. It's what we're doing this so that people can have a better life. Whether you want to call it work or business or a movement or whatever the hell you want to call it, but we're not getting the most out of life in all aspects because we are not going that next level. We're getting forced to make some decisions right now, and the only way out is to go to that next level. And there's a fear-mongering thing going on because there's a control thing going on. There's so many mixed agendas going on, pulling it back into that space. And so we have an opportunity right now to get the spirit aligned with the physiology. This is it.
Could you imagine now?
Best performance and peak performance states, right? Sustainable peak performance states. Sustainable. Not the up. And you need to oscillate a bit to go higher, like you said, so you don't break something, but then to make it sustainable.
Make it measurable. Measure.
Right. Make it measurable. And like we've got the 7 days of the week to balance the portfolio of the invest to get people
and tune into that like every single day. Tommy and I bring something, with a video, with a statement, with some wording around what you can do every single day to find that rhythm.
That's it.
Through Monday right to the Sunday.
Keep that balance.
And stay with us. We're delivering this for a reason, is to support you, to bring more balance into your life. And particularly for people in that corporate space. And I just had a thought, Tommy, imagine writing the corporate eulogy right now.
Right.
Like, corporate's dead.
Long live.
What would you say in the corporate eulogy right now if you had to say of what's happened to the corporate space in the last 40 or 50 years? It'd be a pretty short eulogy.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It'd be a sad eulogy.
It'd be a sad eulogy. I think you'd look back and go, my opinion on this would be, why did it take us so long to work out that we actually just needed to unify and connect? And, a lot of that's been intellectual speak and so on.
An ego.
Yeah. So ego's been the problem.
Greed. Ego,
greed, fear.
Unconsciousness.
Right? Fear. It's like, I need to be super rich. Why? Because of the power. Why do you want the power? You're going to connect it back. It's going to be back in fear.
That's the
Tell
fear.
you now.
Fear. Yeah. Well, all power is based on fear.
Right? Right. What do you need the power for? What do you need all the money for? What do you need all the resources for? Insecurity. I don't feel safe.
And
simply, I don't feel safe.
Spiritual insecurity.
Right? Spiritual insecurity. Right.
Not trusting it, not connecting.
Right.
So there's an insecurity there of I'm not able to touch it, can't feel it.
It's not tangible. Right? It's the only way out. It's the only way out.
Connect the spirit.
And
I'm not talking about going to church every Sunday. Because spirituality is such a.
But having a regular, we've got Soulful Sunday.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a virtual church of your own.
yesterday I went to the mountain. You can see the mountains from me. I drove up there yesterday.
Right.
45 minutes in my car. A friend of mine was playing some beautiful music up there.
Right.
Pink
Awesome.
Floyd
Awesome.
and
Oh,
a
yeah.
bit of country, like a whole
Thanks for
range.
the invite, mate.
Yeah. I needed some solo time. So I did. I went up.
I did. I soloed.
Yeah.
I'm in some live music down here in
Yeah.
Southport.
So I soloed. I took
Right.
my blanket up.
Oh, wow.
I got myself a coffee. I
You
lay
did?
back
You
on the
both did?
grass.
Right.
And I just listened to, his name was Adrian as well, Adrian Davis, a great
Yeah.
muso up on the mountain. And he just, smiling and playing didge and playing his guitar.
Right.
Playing
Awesome. Up in the mountain
and he was
too?
playing the classics, like the 80s classics, that deep.
Wow.
And it was soulful Sunday for me.
Oh, totally.
It was, I needed that space.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I took all of Sunday
Yeah.
off,
Yeah.
first time in a while,
Yeah.
right? Because our labour of love is
Yeah.
doing like this sort of stuff. And I thought, no, Tommy, time out,
So hard.
right? And more of practicing what you pitch. I usually
Yeah.
take it pretty easy on a Sunday, but this time I made a point of
Yeah.
soulful Sunday
Yeah.
was what it was.
Oh,
gonna be.
you're following your own medicine.
Oh my God, go figure.
Isn't that son of a master when you
Right.
follow your own advice?
Yeah.
So
I was
Tommy
faking
and I-
until I made it.
So
you know?
Tommy and I both on the same day
Had-
following
I didn't even
our
know.
advice.
Didn't even know that we both did this.
Soul, because
Yeah.
for me, music is a soul.
Well, and look, I think there's a level of how soulful you go on a Sunday,
yeah.
right? Relative to the rest of my week, it's always been the soulful Sunday, but I was taking it to a new level.
Yeah.
To go, you know what? It's actually for everything. It's disconnect. It's time with me. Spent the morning with someone, connecting, and then I went and spent the rest of the day on my own.
Feeling
Me,
the
music. I
yeah.
put the phone down.
Yeah.
I did a couple of things on the phone, but nowhere near as active as
Yeah.
normal. And I just listened to music on my own,
Yeah,
like you did.
There you go.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And there's something around finding that sense of self, isn't there?
Yeah, well, recentering.
Yeah, recentering.
Without the,
Yeah.
you can't teach a drowning person how to swim type of thing. So there's no external stimuli. Just some music to get you into that right harmonic
Yep.
zone,
Yeah.
frequency within yourself, and just sort of like take that pause and stillness. We were talking about
Yeah.
the other day,
Yeah.
right?
The art of stillness.
The art of stillness. Thought, gonna be still.
Yeah.
Gonna feel it.
Yeah.
Just gonna look around. I'm not gonna have my mind going, not here, not
Yeah.
present, going future, right? Which I tend to. A lot of other people tend to go past,
Yeah.
right? I don't tend to go there very often. But I've got the other thing. I'm going. I'd rather go future.
You'll be like,
rather than
I'm
past.
forward.
Right, yeah. Crusaders are
Yeah.
help types, right? But to bring it to now.
Yeah. And of course, what happens then in the body, Tommy, your area of expertise is when you're relaxed in your mind and when you connect to the spirit, the body goes, thank you.
Oh.
Thank you for giving me a rest for 10 minutes. Stop that energy flow,
Right.
Whoa,
Constantly
yeah.
the machine,
Yeah.
pedal to the metal.
Yeah.
Getting away from that state. And I had that on Sunday
Yeah.
and my meditation song. And it was just to just be there. Yes, and the body goes, okay, for Christ's sake, he's giving us a break.
Yeah.
Right? We can switch off all these
We can
biochemicals.
realign.
We can realign. We can clean up, do a bit of repair over here.
Yeah.
Not only what should be happening while you're asleep, but also at certain times during the day. And what do you know? It puts you in the creative state.
Yeah.
That's where you can be super effective. And if you're a leader, you shouldn't be operating. You should be creating.
Yeah. Totally. It's all about creativity. Isn't
Yeah.
it? Like, what we do on the CAP TV. This is just about being creative in the moment. We don't have a script in front of us.
Yep.
It's just all coming in.
We never prepare before these sessions.
They probably noticed.
Good idea.
They probably noticed.
Where are they going? Where has he gone? He's jumped off the tracks again.
Yeah. But what we love doing, isn't it, is bringing some entertainment, but bringing some, hopefully, enough questions.
There's no pre-rehearsal of this stuff.
No, but bringing some questions for people to use their mind.
Thought-provoking concepts.
Totally.
Yeah. Thought-provoking stuff. Right?
Because when we do it through just talking at, that's the old paradigm. It doesn't work anymore.
it doesn't work.
I'd rather you listen into a conversation and go, well, there's a small gem in there for me to take away to work with, than saying to you, go and do, because we know the results of people who go and do.
Oh, the ego's going to push that away.
Well, it's pretty small because you go, well, I'm already in that state. I don't need to go and do it, or I haven't got the time or the energy or the money.
Yeah.
Excuses.
Well, the last time I checked, we've all got the same amount of time,
Yeah.
unless you're in a no-time space in the fourth and fifth dimension,
Yeah.
right? Or you're totally present. If you're totally present, you are not thinking about time.
Yeah.
In full presence, time concept does not exist.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Unless it's time for dinner.
Right.
Or maybe it's time to bring the show to an end.
Right. Yeah. Hey, look, it's that time right now.
It's getting pretty close, isn't it, Tommy?
It is,
So, Tommy, let's wrap this up in a summary of, because we've got a lot there. We've got a lot of content there.
It was, my God.
If we wrap that up in terms of something to take away to work with in the 3D world, to connect to that spiritual intelligence, that spiritual quantum, what would you suggest is a great way physiologically to start to prepare for that to come in? What are some of your takeaways for people watching in today?
Yeah. So look, people can get overwhelmed, and even where you and I go to, if they are giving mental energy to try and
keep up.
Keep up. Yeah, right. And it stretches a lot. What we want to do is stretch people's minds, that there's thought-provoking things, right? But when you're starting, you want to sequence these things, because otherwise you get that feeling of overwhelm. And that's why we start, and we have the 7 days of the week, right, which actually builds up to this as well, where it's Movement Monday today, right?
So 3K run for me this morning on Broadbeach, which I did. I got up and 7 a.m. meditation. I'm doing Mondays and Thursdays now, live meditations for people, free, just on Zoom and Facebook.
Right. How do they find this?
Go to my Facebook page, Adrian Hanks, or just send a message here and I'll send you a link. It's a Zoom link, but also it is live on Facebook. Right. So meditation at 7, and at 7:45 I did a 3K run, because it was Movement Monday.
Right.
So we did Soulful Sunday, and I did Movement Monday. I'm getting good,
dude.
I'm getting good.
Oh my God, my work's cut out for me. It's getting competitive.
Tasty Tuesday tomorrow.
I mean, I've done part of I did my journaling and my meditation as I do in the mornings, and I did my 30 minutes plus of my physio exercise, yoga exercise stuff. Didn't get my running this morning. I had so many things come at me, and that happens in life. Yeah, okay. He's leading the race. It's a marathon. Yeah, it's a marathon. So back while we're still humans.
So back to the viewers.
So back to shutting down the show.
Back to you guys.
Back to landing it.
So wrapping it.
Right, wrapping it up. Yeah.
So something to do with the movement.
So So I would say first it's going to be the first spiritual exercise is to get consistent with moving. And you know what? I don't care what you do to begin with. If you want to start at the bottom, it's go and do walk. Just go walking. And walking, when you look at the research, 40 minutes a day, that is huge. There are so many studies on longevity stuff around walking, 40 minutes a day, right?
And then burn off those kilojoules if you're not eating good food.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So
then again, dirty fuel, right? You want to get clean fuel, that means sort of organic, but then it could be, as we move to Tasty Tuesday, to then getting the right fuel mix of clean food specifically to support your genome, right? And that's start playing there in epigenetics. And then Wellness Wednesday, really, that's about getting into the recovery piece. Sleep is a big chunk of that, but then taking space during your day, then getting breath work happening during the day when you're getting worked up. And there are devices, because I'm the device guy, right, Mr. Biotech, that you can even put at work under your shirt. Fits under here. It's called a leaf. It sits on, and it actually vibrates when your HRV goes out. And it's saying, hey, when you take some breaths, dude, slow down, right? So that creates the physiological platform for you to then go to the emotional, mental, spiritual side, right?
So start the building blocks.
Start the building blocks.
With the physiological.
Layer up.
You layer up.
Layer up.
There you go. There's the message.
Moving, sleeping.
There's the message.
Yeah.
Layer up, layer up, layer up, layer up.
It's a layer.
Build those blocks, And what's the old saying? If you give a strong foundation, you get a strong building.
Totally.
If you don't put the foundation, stand it'll crumble.
Yep.
And the foundation is the physiological.
It's the physiological. If you want to be in human form, right? If you want to have your
we are, mate. We're human.
Still,
we're human,
right? We are human. Right? Yeah, we're well, what is it? We are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
So let's look after the house.
The meat suit.
Let's look after the
kebab.
Yeah. Let's look after the kebab.
Right. Let's look after the meat suit. What do you want to call it? The matter wrapped around the soul. That part.
I'd call it a vegan wrap.
Vegan wrap? Yeah, of course you would. Right. I'll call it an epigenetic wrap. There we go. An epigenetic gyros. if you will, right?
Gyros.
Gyros, yeah, gyros.
Yeah, a bit of gyros.
Right,
Yeah.
so there we go.
Yeah. All right, look, Tommy G. Another
What was I
fascinating-
on? What was I on, Adrian?
fresh air, good
That's
living,
it,
good
that's
company.
it, right? Exactly.
But I'll tell you what you're on.
Right.
You're on life.
I'm on life, dude.
You're on life.
I'm getting better at it.
Yeah, you're on life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am.
You know, and I think if we can wake up to life, if we can embrace life,
Yeah.
what an experience.
Oh,
you
that's
know,
what it's
because
about.
I know, God forbid that it happens, but if I have to stand up and read part of your eulogy,
It'll be long.
it'll be long because you did so much.
Yeah.
It'll be like, wow, this guy lived life, and I want people to remember me of Adrian lived life. He was a living human being.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's not doing it in a rush.
No,
I mean, that's been my journey.
that's my lesson too now.
Right. Just to
Slow
it down.
down.
Slow down,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
And in the corporate world, so many
Stop
leaders need the help.
that train.
Stop that train.
I want to get on.
Whoa, there we go.
Oh, here we go. So Tommy G,
Adrian Hanks.
till the next fascinating episode of CAP TV.
Right.
Let's say goodbye to the viewers.
Goodbye to the viewers. You can catch this guy on adrianhanks.com.
Oh, you can. And Gold Coasters. Friday night on the Goldie, my book launch, 2084, an inspiring novel full of hope and hopefully some wisdom.
Yep.
And I'd love for you to come and share that experience in Broadbeach, 6 o'clock till 8:30 Friday night. Send me a message, give me a call, and let's get you booked in. I'd love to see you there if you want to share, if you're on the Goldie.
Okay, so that's FB Messenger.
Yeah,
Messenger on
Facebook
Facebook.
Messenger or my
Adrian
website
Hanks.
message, adrianhanks.com.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's the big book launch. The
All right.
books are being printed today,
I'll be there.
posted today, should
Some
arrive
good healthy food I hear too.
Wednesday. Whoa, getting tight,
It is.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
Nervously excited.
Nervously excited?
I think my heart rate's probably up a bit.
Yeah, just be a little bit in sympathetic mode,
Yeah, just
fight
a
or
little-
flight
just a
mode.
little bit,
Yeah, that's all right. It's okay from time to
Yeah. I
time.
might
It's just
stay
not
off
all the
I
time.
might stay off the coffee for the rest of the week.
Right? Yeah, might be an idea for you right now.
Yeah. So adrianhanks.com
Yeah.
and do tune in to us as regularly as you can. Find that calendar Monday through to Sunday. Try and find the link. Like Tommy and I do now. We're getting 2 out of 7 sold for Sunday. Did my run today, so
Right.
move it Monday.
There we go.
But if you can tune into some regularity, I say that would be the thing to do, and build up, like Tommy was saying, build up those building blocks.
Yeah,
You know,
right. So the
that's
foundations
what I
and,
said,
and,
foundation.
and it's a three-legged stool to begin with. Won't go into the analogy right now, but it is a three-legged stool with eating, moving, and sleeping, just the basics.
Yeah.
You can look me up.
Yep.
Thanks for asking, Mr. Hanks.
Yeah. I was just about to couldn't get a word in. You're on fire.
No, I get it. You got
Yeah.
to
And
reprieve
I
this
just saw
time.
a whale dive. Look at
No
that.
way.
Just straight over there. Yeah, whales are jumping. It's
There we
all
go.
happening.
It's all
today.
happening.
Yeah.
Look at the,
Anyway, back on. Where can we find you, mate? Where can we find
You can look Tommy Gallant. You can connect with me on Facebook Messenger,
Yeah, yeah.
Tommy Gallant.
All linked.
Also, TommyGallant.com or Let's Connect at TommyGallant.com or on LinkedIn, Tommy Gallant. And for the Corporate Alchemist page, Corporate Alchemist Project, there is a page you can go and follow. There is also a group called the Corporate Alchemist Project that you can come and join, knock on the door, and we'll open the little slit on our little, if you will, speakeasy, and we'll let you in on answering a few questions. We're growing that group right now. It's a very core group of leaders of business
In that corporate space.
in the corporate space specifically,
Yeah.
or you can. I think that's about it, isn't it? That's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. All right, guys. Thanks for sharing the time with us. God, I was like on fire today. And
All right.
thanks to Mr. Hanks once again.
All right, it's
We'll
all
see you in the
good.
next one, guys. All right.
See you.
Okay. Bye, y'all.